Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Experiment Nation, Ruben here. Listen, you guys know how much I love the short-term rental space. It's been one of actually my favorite guests I've had on my show, especially as an investor myself. Now, as an investor and digital marketer, I can tell you that in 2021, what is most important for every host is to establish and build your own brand. See, while Airbnb.com and Booking.com and Expedia, which we call OTAs, are good, they're not necessarily going to take your business to the next level. Or if it currently is, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. That is because the majority of hosts are not establishing their own platform, their own websites where your guests can book directly through you. If you understand anything about business and marketing, it is the ability to control a list, to have control of that list. You do not have that kind of access and control when you're relying on other OTAs. So the best and easiest way to do this is by working with Boostly. See, Boostly, Mark actually have had him in the lab in episode 130. And the thing is, they built their website specifically for folks in the short-term rental space. And they built that on a WordPress website. See, 64% of all websites in the world are powered by WordPress. While the PMSs that you may have currently are offering you free sites, they're not built on WordPress. Now, Boostly also works with your existing PMS. And it doesn't matter if you're a host of one property or 100. They can start anywhere from 99 pounds. They've helped over 600 clients worldwide. And it is so important that you tap into what they're offering and schedule a consultation call with Mark and his team at Boostly so that you can start leveraging and building your platform so you can start getting direct bookings to skyrocket your business. It's really important that you do this and start building your own brand and that you're in control of your direct bookings for your business. So if that's the case, make sure you book a call at boostly.co.uk/epic. That's boostly.co.uk/epic. And make sure that you schedule a call with Mark and his team at Boostly so that you can start getting your direct bookings for your short-term rental business. We'll see you on the other side. Real Estate Experiment, what is happening, y'all? Today I have a pleasure having the one and only Beez in the lab. Beez and I connected from, Clubhouse, which is a powerful tool. I've been talking about it for a while now. So if you're not on it, you are sleeping on getting a chance to connect with true practitioners like Beez. So Beez, first of all, welcome to the lab, my friend.
Oh man, thank you so much for inviting me on here. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it, man. I love we did connect immediately, and since then been in touch, and I was looking forward to being able to speak to you and tell my story a little bit more.
Absolutely. And we're just talking offline, guys. We have entrepreneurs step into the lab. Beez is a very special one. He has a very diverse background. He said, hey, he hit me up. Hey, Ruben, we gonna talk about real estate. I'm like, don't worry, you got some assets on assets that I want to talk about. So do not worry. Let me preface by saying this. Beez, the man himself, calls him the e-commerce guy, the multiple business guy, supply chain management guy, business and China guy, VA staffing guy, digital ads guy, philanthropist, like family and business, real estate credit master. Like, whoo! Okay, hold up. So if you and I connect, and you told me you speak Mandarin too, so I'm excited. So let's say we meet at the airport, because I'm assuming before all this, you love to travel. And I'm here in Atlanta, makes sense anyways. Busiest airport in the world. I meet with you and I shake your hand and I say, I'm Ruben. You say, I'm Beez. And I ask you, what do you do for a living? Oh, what do you pick out of that? Because that's just fascinating, man. What do you say?
I dread that question because
I know
every time somebody says it, I'm like, but the first thing I just say is I'm an entrepreneur. Since you're in Atlanta, you probably know or have seen the T-shirts that say rapper.
Not a rapper, not an athlete.
Exactly.
Okay, because you brought this up, I want a shirt. Where do I get one? I think I don't know who owns that brand. Is it Nehemiah Davis?
That's Justin Owens and Mr. 2 Weeks Out, Jason Lovdell. part of my circle
You gotta make
overall.
something happen for me, man. I
Ah,
want to
true
be
that.
part of that. No,
But
those are
literally, I point to the shirt because I have like every color. I have tons of those. So I always wear my own brand. You know,
Yep,
like Capital Beez is one of my main
Capital
brands.
Beez, yep.
But I always have that shirt on a lot too. So I just point to it. I'm like, look right here. Like right now, I'm wearing this one says Credit Hero.
I love that.
See, I always kind of wear things that just kind of point to the different topics that I do, the different areas. But overall, I tell people I'm an entrepreneur. I actually coined the phrase business builder instead of a serial entrepreneur. That's what most people equate it to. But I believe that I was a serial entrepreneur, meaning, yo, I'm grinding, I'm trying new things. It's like, yo, I gotta start a new business. I'm doing this. I was that. But then once I figured out a system, I figured out a way to start them properly so that I could scale them well, so that I could fund it without having to go to too many outside sources. That system became business building. So that's where Business Builder Beez came from.
Okay, I gotta ask you, man, before we dive into, which one came first, because that's gonna be my first question. Which one like gets you out of bed the most? Like which avenue?
Out of all of the businesses around?
Yeah, like which one is like, because I want to be like you someday where I wake up and I'm just like, you know what, man, I really like that one. So like out of my
that's a good question. You're a great interviewer.
Appreciate that.
Let me tell you, a lot of times people say that, oh, follow your passion. You gotta, if you're in your passion, then you'll be happy. That's not necessarily the truth.
I agree with you 100%.
None of these things, unless you want to say that my passion is just being an entrepreneur, period. Okay, if that's how you want to spin it. But in terms of what I do, man, none of these things is anything I would have ever dreamed I'd be. In particular, I have a supply chain management company called Seller Kai. In Seller Kai, we help other e-commerce sellers to handle everything on the China side, sourcing from China, finding the suppliers, dealing with them with your production, inspections, shipping, everything, right? I have no interest in supply chain management, but I found a need because I started off in e-commerce in terms of my entrepreneurial career. I started off in e-commerce, and then I was like, yo, what's the hardest part of this? Dealing with the suppliers. All right, let me go perfect it. Once I perfected it, because everybody else was shying away from it because it was so hard. So once I perfected it, I was like, hey, I could offer this as a service to other e-commerce sellers. And then that's how that business grew. So to answer your question specifically, the one that probably right now excites me, I'm not gonna say motivates me, but excites me the most is what I've been doing with the cars, right? So.
Oh, hell no. You didn't have that in there. That wasn't in the script. He said
because you probably got the script originally from Clubhouse script.
We've been digging, man. You're hard to find. First time. Okay, the cars. Is this, okay. Is this like I'm trying to think, Turo?
Similar to Turo.
Okay.
Yeah. So Turo's just one platform.
It is.
That's
okay.
But there's many platforms plus the direct rentals. So if you look on my page, Business Builder Beez, you see I got McLaren, you got the i8, I just got a new Mustang Mach-E, which is the electric vehicle that competes with the Tesla.
It's crazy.
It just came out. Right now, today, right before, like an hour ago, I just picked up a new Jeep Gladiator, which I'm going to trick out a little bit. And, because that's going to be a good rental in South Florida. Tomorrow, I'm going to pick up a couple of slingshots because those are fun things.
Are those with the, that's what I didn't even know they were called that. That's crazy.
So you see what I'm saying? It's like,
wait. Okay, so you're my credit guy. We're gonna get to this because it's just you're dropping so many gems that I'm taking notes already, and it's gonna slip through the cracks. So you're a credit guy.
Yeah.
You're a leverage guy.
Yeah.
To all the listeners out there, this is important. Are you buying? Are you leasing? What is the move with this leverage?
Oh no, I can't lease. I gotta buy especially because my intention is to rent it out, right? So mileage is going to come into play if I'm leasing, stuff like that, right? So my thing is, no matter how much money I have, I could go and buy most of these cars on my own with cash, right?
Oh, we're not worried about that. I'm not worried about that, listeners. You guys, you got to check this guy. But I know I'm saying this because it's so interesting, because you're buying an investment. This is a vehicle, literally, no pun intended. Yeah. But seriously, so I wasn't sure of how you structured it, because we're gonna get deep into how you've leveraged so many ways in their credit, which I know is like your fire.
Credit's the foundation. Credit's the foundation of everything.
So that's interesting. So you're buying these vehicles. And obviously, the reason why you can't lease is because when you're leasing and you have these terms, you have to, a certain amount of mileage you can't reach, you can't cap, and you don't want to limit your investment. Okay.
Exactly.
Understood. So interesting. All right. Let me take a step back, because we're going to get to that, and I don't want to let this slip through the cracks either. Okay. Yeah. What you said was important, right? Because it's a thing I learned, and I'm real passionate about it. One of my favorite books is The Millionaire Fast Lane by MJ DeMarco. Not sure if you're familiar, but he talks about the sense model: control, entry, need, time, and scale. He says and people throw it around so much passion. And he talks about the feedback loop. Yeah, you're going to have interest for what brings a return. And the only way you find a return is if there's a demand in the marketplace. Yes. So I want to go back to how this all came together, because one of the things I love and that I'm striving to build is vertical integration. So anytime something happens in my business, it's like, oh, let me fix that problem. Maybe we don't have to go elsewhere through a third party. Maybe we can fix it in-house and create a business. I mean, that's how my agency started, right? So I gotta ask you, man, which one came first, so we can get to know you a little bit more? Like, and at the same time, when you're building these, I'm assuming you're fixing your own problems, right? So then were a few of those kind of coexisting, being co-built at the same time? I'm curious.
Yeah. So, most people come to me and they're like, how you got seven plus businesses, and I can't manage one. How is this impossible if you've been managing so many? I'm not doing it by myself. You know what I mean? I scale businesses with first establishing a process, right? You have to document your process and understand your process. Then always refine your process to make it more efficient. Then you automate with systems, right? So now it's going to become easier for whatever your process activities are. Then you elevate yourself out of the process with people, right? So that's where a lot of small business entrepreneurs sometimes fail, is because they don't want to delegate. They feel like they can't afford to hire someone just yet, and that type of stuff, right? So for me, once I had those things, how I'm going to prepare my business to be scaled, my next biggest challenge in the years since the beginning of this was, how do I get it funded? I used to hear people be like, yeah, I started a new business and, we just bought $100,000 worth of something. I'm like, what? How? You didn't even get that revenue yet. What are you doing? Right. But then I realized, it was one day when I went into the bank and interest rates were low. My credit was good. I think it was like at a 750, 760, something like that, before I became a credit expert. And I couldn't get a loan because they weren't lending out at the time for real estate, because they were afraid of some economic potential things that were going to happen that could be a downturn or whatnot. So they were pausing on lending.
Risky business.
Yeah. So to me, I was like, okay, I got good credit. You can't give me a loan, but I still have credit cards from you. You gave me credit cards, but you won't give me a loan. So then I started digging in deeper, and I learned how to liquidate those credit cards to use them for my investments. So now I don't want to go to the bank for nothing no more. I'd be like, yeah, just give me my credit cards. That's all I need, and I'm good.
So just so we're clear, because I was actually in one of my real estate development partners is big in this space. He's talking about there's a difference too. There's business credit cards versus business credit. Those are two separate things, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So which one do you go to first if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I am making some revenue. I've never really thought about this. Which one's the lowest hanging fruit that one should consider?
So when you say business credit, that just means two things. One, it's like your personal credit, right? You have a credit report, a credit score. Business credit means building up the credit for the business, the credibility of the business. And there's a different credit score that you have for the business side. It's called the Paydex score with Dun & Bradstreet, right? So Dun & Bradstreet being the main and the oldest business credit bureau. The other two main ones are Equifax Business and Experian Business. right? So building your business credit is just one thing. Now, back in the day, people were able to build their business credit and then go and get a loan completely in the business name, and it has nothing to do with them, and that's the end of it, right? Which is the preferable model.
Yeah.
Those days are gone. So while I do encourage people to build their business credit, why? Because there's something called corporate credit later on that only comes later on, but you can't, if you don't prepare with the business credit, then you won't hit corporate credit. But in the meantime, you have to make sure your personal credit is good first, because nowadays, if you're going to go get a business loan, a business credit card, or whatever it may be, they're going to do a PG, which is a personal guarantee on your personal credit. They'll still put it in the business name, but it requires that you got that PG first.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that's really it with when it comes to credit. I encourage people and I help people as well to fix their personal credit for the sole purpose of getting business funding, business credit through their business credit. Right?
Okay. So now, do you have any kind of experience and insights on the credit card? And do you think one should even touch that and leverage that as well? Or you're just thinking, okay, focus on yourself first, so you could be the PG for your business. So I guess, what do you think is kind of like first step when you're advising folks in
you're saying like
ecosystem?
Like personal credit cards?
No, I'm thinking business credit cards. I think that's something that's come up. It's different than, I guess, leveraging business credit cards instead.
And that's the thing. You can't get those unless your personal credit is good first, because you have to do the PG, the personal guarantee, right? And when it comes to that, the PG, or I'm sorry, when it comes to building your personal credit, you have to have some trade lines like credit cards or loans from mortgage or auto. It's about your credit mix that makes your profile strong, right? And then, subsequently increases your credit score, right? So, and then all of the things that affect your credit score, like your utilization, how much of it you're spending. Once you have a loan or a credit card in business credit, then you no longer, it doesn't affect your utilization. You see what I'm saying? So
absolutely,
that's the benefit of business credit overall.
Absolutely. So Beez, you talked about, and thanks for clarifying that, by the way. I think that's important for all of us to understand. So you talked about SOPs, processes, systems, and people, right? Mm-hmm. We're starting to there's a lot of sexy words being thrown around these days, like scaling and system and add value. Okay, great. What does the system part look like for you? Because you talk about SOPs make sense. It's like a checklist. I think that came from like the pilot industry. Hey, check, yes, check, right? Mm-hmm. You do a checklist. That's important. We do that in-house too. Then you have a process that you repeat. But the systems part, is that technology? Does that include I know you talk about people coming right after, like, what does that look like in your world and maybe in the world of all those businesses that you've built? Is it the same or is it different?
Yeah. It's the same concept. It's not going to be the same tools. And yes, when I talk about systems, I'm primarily speaking about technology that's going to help automate your process, right? But systems, for example, you got a process in your marketing team within your company. You got a process in your finance team within your company, a process with the sales team in your company. The way that they interact with each other is also a system, right? So yes, you could look at a system as that, the interaction of all of your processes to make sure that they efficiently flow between each other and such. But I'm more focused on how do you automate these processes, and then typically that's with technology. With technology, and then people most people I know, most entrepreneurs, and myself in the beginning, when I started a new business, I'm going to grind in it first. I'm going to grind hard for a couple months, just learning and documenting the process, and then maybe getting a little bit of revenue coming in, and then seeing what systems and hiring, right? The way that I've sped things up because of this business building methodology that I've been, teaching, you're able to do that from the beginning. So we hire early on to help have those remote workers, for example. You could hire inexpensive remote workers from like the Philippines, still highly skilled, but the lower price costs, right? And you hire them early on to help document and prepare your process. And then you start scaling the same way. Then when you bring in another person, this person teaches that person. And then maybe this person becomes a lead and teaches multiple. And then that way you're only focusing on communication with this one and direction with that one, rather than you having to be involved in every single aspect of your company. So overall, scaling to me is as simple as that. And that's the summarized process of how I am able to manage multiple businesses, because each business becomes somewhat autonomous without me. You know what I mean? They're running, and then I'm staring it from the bird's eye view, from a strategic perspective, rather than being a bottleneck in the process.
Wow. I love that. First of all, it's reassuring to hear that I am following that process. And to those of us listening, I think it's really, this is why I do this, right? Sometimes it's getting reassurance, right? From guys like Beez who have done this over and over again. The proof is in the pudding, right? Just, literally you have to be humble enough to understand that you're not the best at what you're doing. And one of my favorite quotes, I think recently I was saying in one of my meetings, I think it was Steve Jobs who said, we don't hire people to tell them what to do. We hire people so they can tell us what to do. And I was like, damn. And I think that's the next level too, of like, now you have, like, I had a guy who came in who's like, hey, Ruben, he was a VA. He worked at like Wells Fargo, and he's like, hey, this is what we use, and I think you should consider using that because it worked. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, let's empower ourselves too, to realize that we're not just the best at what we do. There's other people who are better than us. In addition to what you said, wow, that's super powerful.
Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
That brings me to one of my favorite quotes, right? Because one thing everybody asks is like, oh, you're doing too. Okay, since the last maybe 8 months or so, maybe a little bit more, I've become an influencer, right? Because I was running my businesses and I wasn't on social media that much or whatever. I was just focused on, internal. Yeah. But then it was actually Grant Cardone who told me, he was like, listen, you're doing great in business. Because I was in one of his mentorship classes on real estate. He's like, you're doing great in business, but I didn't know you before this. And I was like, okay. And he was like, listen, if you want to, you need to be known. So if I don't know you, I can't flow you, meaning can't give me no money. So I was like, okay, I challenged myself. I was like, all right, I'll start doing it. And then I put out information and everybody was like, yo, that's amazing. I was like, okay, I guess I'll just keep going. And it just grew from there. But my favorite quote that's related to that is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, right? You know that quote, right? However, I preach, and what I teach is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one, right? And that is what sums me up, because people feel like, everybody comes to me now and they're like, yo, you gotta focus on one lane as an influencer. You got too many things going on. I'm like, no, I don't need to do that. I'm challenging the norm, because think about it. When you start a business, you have to know, you got to know a little bit about everything in your business, right? I'm not going to say, hey, I hire that finance guy and he's going to tell me what to do, which is good, and give me suggestions, but I need to know about what he's suggesting. I need to know that this is what we're doing.
Execute before you delegate. So you got to be.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So to me, being a jack of all trades, I'm trying to change that term from being having that negative connotation to it. Because people be like, oh, no, that's not me. Like, nah, that is me.
I'm so glad you said that, because I don't like canning. I think we say this all the time, like these sayings, and we say it, and then it becomes part of our subconscious mind. Like, this is the truth. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I'm gonna have a follow-up question on this, but it's really interesting. What would you tell your 21-year-old self, or anyone who's listening who's like, dang, like, because I think Gary Vaynerchuk touches on this a little bit too. Like, you gotta, and that's kind of like what Experiment Nation is about. Like, it's experimenting means experimenting broad and then going narrow. Actually, correct me if I'm wrong. I'd love to hear your insight on this. My whole philosophy, and then I'll get back on track. My whole philosophy is that it's an hourglass, right? So it's kind of like you're broad first. And that's what I did real estate. Like, I got to test. I got to do wholesaling. I got to be an agent. I got to do this broad first, so you get a taste. But you can't know, right? Then you start to narrow and you niche down. And then guess what? When you're crushing it, you can diversify and afford to diversify into many things. So that's how I look at the experiments. It's an hourglass.
So let me know how much royalties I need to pay you, because I will be stealing that. That is the perfect example, the perfect analogy of what I talk about all the time. When people say, oh, but you can't tell people to just have multiple businesses like that. I'm like, listen, first you got to have one. You got to go through this process first on how to scale, how to automate and everything. And then once you get that one, then you could say, okay, I could manage a second one. Because after my first business became automated, there was some times where I was like, damn, I don't got nothing to do anymore. Because my team was taking care of everything.
I love
so I was
that.
like, okay, because of who I am, I couldn't just stay chilling. I was motivated, like, okay, well, what's next? And then that's where I was like, all right, I'm gonna start another business. And I don't even know if I should get into how I choose these businesses, because that could be
I was literally gonna ask you the same thing. So because it's kind of tied to my follow-up question. You're literally helping me bring this full circle. It was just All-Star Weekend. He's throwing lobs up. Okay, so what I was gonna say is, when you're picking opportunities, like, what are you looking at? Are you looking for synergy in addition to the demand? Or are you looking to stay in the vertical? I know they call this thing, and vertical integration is defined as going up the supply chain ladder, right? Like literally, like, okay, what's next? Oh, they pack boxes. Okay, why don't we pack boxes ourselves, right? And I'm sure you can resonate with that, because you're in the space, you're in the supply chain business. So how do you start assessing and okay, what's the next opportunity? I'm curious. I want to get into the mind of bees, man.
So the first thing is that vertical integration, right? Like with Seller Kai, we'll use that one as an example again.
Yes.
After a while, I was like, okay, when we ship out our customers' goods and it goes on the ship, and then the ship takes it to the States or wherever, and then the third-party trucking company would come and get it, I was like, well, dang, I should start my own trucking company. You know what I'm saying? And so that vertical integration definitely became one. I was like, one day I will own the ship too. But for now, it's okay. I'll just start over on this side and own the trucking company, right? So that thought process does come into play. However, there's two other thought processes that come into play for me. One, I had a marketing team within my company. And my marketing team was doing really good. I started, making it more organized, adding more resources, to the point that it was just amazing. So I was like, oh, spin this out, and I got a new marketing company now. So now not only does that marketing company help all of my internal companies for marketing, but we have external clients. Same thing with my staffing firm. I got really good. It ain't easy. And I got really good at sourcing VAs from places like the Philippines, and I had so many nightmares prior, right?
I can't.
I got really good at it.
Who is this guy? I can't believe you right now. No, I'm literally. I went through that, and then I pivoted. My agency pivoted from a VA agency, which is hilarious. Oh man, but keep going. So you managed to get through, which is phenomenal, because it's hard. I know it's hard. I've been there.
It is. But then, once I became so good at it, I was like, let me make it more official process-wise. And then I said, okay, now it can become its own company and help external customers. But that leads me to that third way of thinking on how I choose businesses. I don't choose a business if it doesn't already have an existing customer base and demand there ready and waiting for me, right? So for example, I had joined a network of entrepreneurs through a course that I purchased. All these entrepreneurs were doing all their different things, but we all came together because of the course, just to kind of collab and to learn something new in that course. Every single one of them, over 1,000 entrepreneurs, were entrepreneurs. So that means they had businesses, right? Then all I had to do was tell them, hey, I got this new, I didn't even say new at the time. You always want to make it seem like it's old, but I got a VA staffing firm. Right now, I have not run one ad for my VA staffing firm. We have a waiting list of like 400, 500 people. And because I just tapped into that demand that was there. Same thing I did with Seller Kai. Like I told you, I figured out what people were, what was the most challenging for them as an e-commerce seller dealing with China. Whatever somebody doesn't want to do themselves, I'll go figure out how to do it, because then that means they don't want to do it themselves. That means they want to pay somebody to do it. So once I figured out how to, manage everything on China, I set up offices and warehouses out there. And then I said, okay, the training course that I was part of for learning more and more about selling on Amazon FBA and such, they were all active Amazon FBA sellers in there who all didn't want to deal with China, who all now wanted to just go through my company. So those are the three things that I do when it comes to choosing the next company. Is the vertical integration for sure. The what have I mastered within my company that could spin off into something else? And then is there an existing demand already that I could just tap into so that I get revenue quicker? Yeah. Right. That way I don't got to wait a year of being, bootstrapping before I get revenue. And then
and to piggyback that demand is literally in your ecosystem. Like it's literally a call and text away, which wow, I think it's fascinating. Exactly. That's crazy. Yeah, it's so funny that we actually, I'm looking at you. You're obviously, I love having people like you in the lab who are 12 steps ahead. But it's funny because we do have some very, or I should say, similarities in that sense. Because my partners sold their company from Amazon, and then we started Shopify store. So I know that whole thing about FBA and even freight forwarders, like getting a proof of concept from China, like that. I mean, it's just fascinating that you're able to see, because I feel like there's these aches and pains in businesses all the time, and in these forums people talk about it. So like when you talk about your passion, it's about what problem is out there that exists that people are literally raising their hand. They're like, man, this sucks. Like anywhere someone says this sucks, because that's the business opportunity. And it's just, man, that's awesome, man. So listen, look, so I got to put this out there. We're doing our digging, man. You have a background in technology. You worked at Microsoft, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I worked at Microsoft crazy. And Accenture, one of the top global consulting firms. I started out as a network administrator, like when I came out of college. So I was always into technology. And then I became more into strategy as well. So then I became like a project manager, IT project manager. And then I became a IT strategy consultant, then a IT management strategy consultant. So I'd go into Fortune 500 companies and meet with the CEO, CIO, and CTOs and re-engineer their processes to be more efficient so that they could then scale more, right? So all of those things that I was doing, because I have my PMP, I have Prince 2, which are both project management professional certifications. I got CISSP, which is expired if you don't renew it every 5 years. That's a security professional certification. I got ITIL expert. I got Lean IT. I'm a Six Sigma black belt, right? So these are things that I was doing in my career anyway. And then I said, you know what, let me just take that and compact it and apply it to a small business perspective. And, that's what I've been doing for my businesses. And that's how it took off like that.
If you're listening to this, I'm pumping my fist, like a victory fist, because what you're saying is so important. My next question was going to be, what did you take from that world into your business world? Because I think we're so quick to be like, oh man, like 9 to 5 this, 9 to 5 that. But like, what can you, like these corporations were created by entrepreneurs, like literally like us as entrepreneurs, we're building corporations. It's the exact same thing. So what systems can we learn? I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Salesforce in here. Okay. No kidding. Agile. Oh, Scrum. Okay. Huddle every day. Like
exactly.
Take it works. It's been working, and bring it to the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I was going to say, I mean, you spoke about it. Is there one thing that you feel that was super beneficial from the corporate world that you just took? And what was that framework that you think created that bridge right away that maybe you didn't even realize, but you were applying it? Do you think there's one that comes to mind?
I mean, it's literally just like what I said. It's just in terms of it's that whole package. Because you know what, when I left Microsoft, I didn't really know what I was going to do at the time. I was just like, yo, I'm tired, because I was traveling every day, every week from like Sunday to like Thursday or Sunday to Friday sometimes.
Management consulting? Is that what it was?
Yeah, going to all these different projects, all these different companies, right? Yeah. And I was like, man, I loved Microsoft. It's an amazing company to work for, right? But I felt like they were dimming my entrepreneurial spirit because I had no time or energy for nothing else but them, right? Even my kids, it was like, yo, I'm missing some time with my kids. So I was like, all right, I'm done. And I was out. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But my first thought was, dang, they were paying me $140,000 a year plus bonuses. Sometimes got to like 210. And the project that I was going on, the client was paying them a couple million.
That's that staffing agency stuff. You
You
quickly.
know what I'm saying? So I started saying to myself, well, dang, I might as well go into that business directly. The same consulting that I was doing, I might as well go into it and help people directly. And I could charge more. I can't charge Microsoft money because it's still their name, but I could still charge a couple $100,000 for a project, right? But then I said to myself, but I don't really love that. I don't really love doing that all the time for everybody and whatnot. And I can't scale myself, right? For my knowledge of doing that, to go out and do it for other clients, it's going to require me more than anything else, right? Until I could hire enough other professionals that are as good as me or better to do the same type of thing. So I was like, all right, instead of me using that knowledge to do the same job for clients, let me use that knowledge for myself. And I'll build whatever business I get into using everything that I learned in my career. And, you know, here we are now.
Which one did you tackle first when you stepped out of Microsoft?
E-commerce. So
Yeah.
I got into three versions of e-commerce. The first one I did was wholesaling, which was great, but it requires so much more time because you have to make that sale. Once you make the sale, it's good because it's a big sale, right? But then I moved into private labeling, and I was like, oh, this is it. And once I got into private labeling with Amazon FBA, I was like, oh, this is it, because now there's still risk, but you can reduce risk more than in any other business type. Why? Because you could make decisions. I know a lot of people that sold on Amazon and they were like, oh, I was selling it and it didn't really work out that well. I was like, that's because you ain't selling it right. You have to read the data on Amazon. There's tools like Jungle Scout, Viral Launch, and others who can help scrape the data from Amazon and then see which things are selling the most. Then you have to break it down more and then say, okay, these things are selling the most, but the leaders in that space don't have that many reviews. So, there's a way for me to get in it. If the leaders in the space had thousands of reviews, if I come start into that niche too, most people are just going to choose the one with more reviews, right? Yeah. So you got to find what is selling good through the data, then find what is not too saturated through data again, and then find what's not too what's not too difficult to build and ship in China. So, small parts, something that's not electronics initially, certain criteria,
and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. So for me, private labeling was the truth. Then I did a little bit of drop shipping, which was great. I made some really big, fast money on drop shipping. But drop shipping, you have to, because it doesn't cost that much up front because you don't got to buy inventory. People don't realize you have to spend on marketing, spend a lot on marketing.
Yeah, I can attest to that. And we should have exited that. That's one unsuccessful exit that that we never had. Now I was gonna say I can attest to that because that was a business lesson that I learned 101, where we were making 100K plus a month, but 62K went to Facebook. That's a bad margin, man. And we did not take home at all. And that's another thing you got to understand. Profits versus revenue are very different. So guilty. But it's a very different business. I'm curious though, before I transition, because I do want to respect your time. Were you also, because this is a big thing that we're starting to talk, well, I know that's relevant in my ecosystem right now. Are you also doing things to capture the list and grow your list as well?
I know that's a must.
Yeah. Right.
That is
I think that's important.
I highly encourage everybody, capture your list, capture your audience, take them off of the social media platforms, right? I use Community right now for my text list. I was using ManyChat as a chat bot within Messenger so that it captures people. And not only is it giving automated responses to give people information quicker than having to email me or my support team and wait for an answer, but it also captures it like adds those people who interact with your messenger on Facebook, with your business messenger. It captures them into a list. So now you can market directly to them as well. So yeah, I'm a very big fan of taking your list, taking your audience off of these platforms so that you have a little bit more control of it.
Important. So listen, Beez, man, I knew this was going to be such a good one, but we can't leave without talking about the reason we actually connected. You brought up a very good topic. We were in a clubhouse together. We were talking about trust, and it came up, and I'm like, oh, I like this because I haven't heard of this. And, you know, I'm a sponge. I want to soak it in and then share it with the community. That's what we're doing here. So what insights were you maybe able to get when you asked that question? Why did it matter to you? Are you at a place right now where you're thinking about this, and why should we all be thinking about trust? And what can you tell us that we should to plant the seed?
Yeah, I won't say I'm a master of trust, but I'm well educated on it, self-educated on it. And the reason why I asked that question wasn't because I didn't know much about trust. It was I wanted to see what a billionaire old white guy would tell me about trust.
Yeah,
he didn't have much to tell me because you know why?
Exactly. I was like surprised too, right?
Well, the reason why is because Grant's self-made. He didn't come from a trust fund baby or something like that. You know, so for him, he didn't really know about it growing up, and then as he got older, he makes so much money that he didn't think about it too much. But he still is. He does have some asset protection in place and such. But for someone like me, especially, first generation millionaire out of my family for sure, and I want to make sure that that's passed down, I had to learn the game. So I first set up a trust about 2 years ago, maybe, and it wasn't until last year that I found out that I set it up wrong or not optimal, right? There's many different types of trusts out there. You may hear a dynasty trust, this, that, all types of different trusts, and they have different aspects to them. What they all have is these provisions that are baked into them, right? Because it's just a legal document in essence, a legal entity that was started by a document that a lawyer fills out, that files, and then it becomes this virtual entity, right? So the provisions that most people don't know about in their trust is one, you got to have a spend-thrift provision, a non-grantor provision, irrevocable, complex, and discretionary. With those 5 things, your trust is almost ironclad, right? There's more that goes into setting it up, but those provisions is what really, you ever watched Power with Ghost?
Yeah.
You remember how his son couldn't touch any money until he graduates school or something like that?
Yes.
That's the type of things that I'm baking into my trust, right? Because that's part of like the spendthrift provision. So now it's like, okay, I'm going to make sure generational wealth is not just about how much money I can make. And it's not just about that I could just pass it to my son. Because if I don't teach my son financial literacy, it's going to disappear in his generation. Generational wealth is you create it, you pass it down, you teach the next generation how to do it, but you also put some controls in place. It's like making a process. When you create a process, you have to have metrics, you have to have controls, constraints within the process, right? So all of those things is what I put into building my trust so that it can survive on its own, but my kids know what to do with it. And then right now, my biggest saying that I tell a lot of people is I own nothing, but I control everything. You feel me? So that's the power of the trust right there, and I can defer taxes in perpetuity, right? And no issues as long as no one dissolves the trust. So that's part of the education. I got to make sure my kids and grandkids and on know never to dissolve that trust. We're even gonna create a family crest and everything,
I love it. We're gonna get a new logo with we're gonna call it BBT, Beez Business Trust, or actually no, I was gonna think Beez Building Trust or BBT. BBT something. We can bake something like that. Baking Business Trust. I mean, you can't go wrong with that BBT, man. You heard it here first, man. Give me this. But you mentioned something key that I want to make sure that we also highlight. You said you started it 2 years ago. When should one start one? And do you feel that you started 2 years ago because that was the right time based on where you were, or do you wish you would have started one earlier, or should you?
Well, right now I'm also in the process of starting a nonprofit that's going to focus on teaching kids financial literacy. Why? Because the things that I learn right now, I wish I knew them when I was like 18 or so, right? So it's not that I chose to start it 2 years ago because it was the right time. It was because I never knew what that really meant. I didn't know nothing about it. But when I started that whole financial literacy journey and saying I need to really focus on learning the game that I don't even know that's being played, I need to learn what that game is, and then I need to learn the rules so I can figure out how to finesse my life with that, with, you know, around those rules. Everything that, you know, I teach and do is completely legal. Like, for example, not the biggest fan of Donald Trump, but I am not mad at him that he only paid $700 in taxes over the last however many years. I want to know how to do that too. Because if it's legal, which it is, then we should all know that loophole.
Exactly.
Right. So that's been my driving forces. I want to know all the loopholes, and I want to teach others, you know, the loopholes themselves, so that we all have that opportunity, whether you take it or not. I just want everybody to have the opportunity. So I started it 2 years ago, but then as I kept learning more and more and more, that's when I realized that, oh, wait a minute, there's a completely different part of this game I didn't even realize. Because I used to think a trust was just about how do you pass money on or assets on, but it's not. You could live in the trust, right? And you can't do it without these provisions that I mentioned. And when I say live in the trust, I mean having the trust set up right now. I could defer taxes, so I don't got to pay taxes, right? I could take money out of the trust, put it back without getting that tax. Capital gains tax and stuff don't mean nothing to me when it comes to real estate anymore. So I could do things in my life to help me continue to build my wealth through the protection of the trust.
How early should one start a trust?
Well, how old are you right now? I don't know. Like right away, man. Like, listen,
right.
You know, I'd say this though, if you already do have a trust, like how my son will when he's, you know, of age, he doesn't have to start a new one because that one would already be in place. But if you don't have a trust in your family already, and I got a family trust, and I'm in the process of finishing my business trust, which is going to be more of a pass-through entity, but it kind of helps me to unincorporate all these different businesses I got. Why did I have separate businesses? Because I could get funding in each business, and because I protect the liability between each, right? That's not necessary when it's in a trust, because ain't nobody suing you and winning nothing if it's all in the trust, you know?
Beez, help me out for a second. Is a holding company a similar concept to that, or is it just like a layer? Is it, would you say, I don't know if you're as familiar with it, because I know I'm not as familiar, and I want to get familiar, especially when we talk about the many companies that you have. From what I understand, a holding company is like the large umbrella. I think Roland Frazier is a good guy for that. I don't know if you know Roland Frazier from like Digital Marketer and all that. He's like a lawyer. You know Ryan Dice?
Yeah, I know Ryan Dice.
Yeah, he works with him, Roland Frazier. That's who he is. And he buys a lot of businesses, which is something I'm very interested about. But he talked about like a holding company which holds the multiple entities underneath. And what you talked about, the pass through and the who's paying taxes to who, it's based on the holding company. It's just fascinating. I'm like, there's so much to do, right?
There's so much. I'm as much as I teach people, I'm a forever student.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, likewise, I'm here in the lab just soaking it in. No, there is no shame with saying, I don't know, tell me more. And I think that's the culture we're trying to build right here. But man, I got like 5 minutes on. It's been so fun. I got to chop this up. I got to wrap it up because you've given us so many gems in your time. We've gotten a chance to know you on the air. I gotta ask you these final questions just because you're such a resourceful, thoughtful guy. What is there a favorite gem, a favorite book out there that stands out to you that I wish I would have read, like one of my favorite books. I wish I would have read this like 10 years ago or something, a resource you can leave the people.
Man, I know I could be long-winded sometimes because I got so much things to say.
Please keep going, man. If you got the time, keep going. I just want to respect your time, brother.
I'll tell you, my first favorite book to tell everybody to read is The Richest Man in Babylon. Right? It's one of my favorite books ever. I've read it maybe about 10, 12 times. I read it again just in January with a book club group that I'm part of too.
Why is that?
Because it was written about 100 years ago or so, and it's ever more, it's so relevant, even more so now. Right? It's like, it's the foundations of financial literacy. When you read this book, if you pay attention to what they're saying, it's things like, he'll say, oh, how is it that you are able, they're speaking like this old English or old, ancient tongue or whatever. How is it that thou are able to carry so many goats from within your stable or something? And he's like, well, because I'm not the one doing it myself. I have hired people in order to do so. So all of the things, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That relates to what I be talking about with scaling your business, right? And he's like, oh, why is it that I'm living from purse to purse, meaning check to check, when you are able to buy these lavish things and whatnot? He's like, because my money, my coin goes out and earns more children for me. Meaning you don't just put your money in a bank account just sitting there earning less than 1% interest. Every dime I got, except for my emergency fund, I do keep an emergency fund, but every other dime is
going to work. Your soldiers.
You know what I'm saying? Bringing in more soldiers. So that is my favorite book for that purpose. Probably one of my second favorite books, and only because I took a specific aspect of it and it became the core or the foundation of who I am right now, is The Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Everybody knows that book, right? But in the book, to be honest, I've had some friends that have read that book, some more affluent friends growing up. They were growing up affluent, and when they read that book, they were like, okay, yeah, because it didn't.
Yeah, just to them, it's just like, yeah, of course,
like someone else,
of course. I have two rich dads.
You know what I mean? But so in the book, it talks about the cash flow quadrant. Right? And the cash flow quadrant, we all start up here as an employee. And as we work for somebody, and then we start complaining, I'm tired of this, I need to work for myself. Then you go down into self-employed. Yeah. Right? Too many people get stuck in this quadrant, self-employed. Absolutely. These two quadrants, you're still trading your time for money, right? And there's only but so much hours in the day. So your earning potential is limited when you're working for yourself. Sure, you got a little bit more freedom than the employee, because you could decide not to go to work today. You don't got to ask nobody for time off. Yeah. But your potential is limited. Where I live is in this quadrant, business owner, right? And that's become the basis of everything that I teach and preach, is this whole quadrant, these four, the cash flow quadrant. So up here in this corner is a business owner. That's when you start putting process systems and people into place to scale yourself out of the process, so that you're not a bottleneck, and so that you're steering from strategic level, right? And then the final quadrant, of course, is the investor. Now I don't even need to build those process systems and people. Now I just give money and somebody else build it, and then I get money from that too. You know what I mean? So those are probably my two favorite books for two separate reasons. But yeah, I always recommend those.
That's fascinating. I'll ask, what is the best habit you think that serves you throughout the day?
There was a time where I, just like most of America, was binge watching on Netflix and stuff, right? Like, oh, this new show came out, and I'm gonna spend all weekend watching this. I'd be up till 3 a.m. sometimes watching Stranger Things.
Was that on the third business or on the 10th business?
This was like on the first or second business. And I quickly learned that ain't helping me. Yeah. So what became my more favorite pastime now is reading, right? And yeah, you always hear that these major CEOs of these major companies, they read all the time, 20 books a year, blah, blah, whatever. Last year, I challenged myself to read 42 books. I chose I don't know if you know what that number 42 means. It's from an old book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But anyway, that's the reason why I chose 42.
I'm going to go deep down that rabbit hole now. 42.
Yeah, but 42 is the meaning of everything. It's the meaning of life and everything. Not really. It's just in the book. So whatever.
Listen, I picked 42. I'll take my gems when I can. I heard what you said.
So I picked 42 books to read last year. And how do I do that? Is audiobooks, right? I can't sit down and just read them all the time and get through that many. But if I'm at the gym or I'm doing this or doing that, I could keep it going. So I'm just soaking in knowledge nonstop. So for me, that's my favorite pastime, man. It's just consistently soaking in knowledge. And the best way has been through books. And I'm not reading, romance novels or nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
personal development.
Exactly. Don't get me wrong though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Dan Brown books, like Da Vinci Code.
Yeah. You like
all
that
of those
stuff?
books that he reads, that he wrote. I've read those too. I love those because
Oh, interesting.
it's historical fiction too.
Yes.
So there's things that I could learn in there, even though it's not things that apply to my business maybe, but it's still things I could learn. So I just love learning overall.
Yeah. It's 2021. If you're listening to this, it's March 10th. What's one of your favorite softwares right now that you might be using in one of your many businesses that you're like, man, this is my go-to jam that I gotta tell the Experiment Nation, but we're gonna keep it on the hush hush.
I gotta say 2, and both of them I hated initially, but now they're completely invaluable to me, man. I need them. Well, the first one is a mixture of 2. It's Trello and or Asana, right? Because my whole organization, every company is in Trello and Asana. There's a reason why some are still in Trello, but we moved from Trello to Asana because it was more powerful. But both of them I love. The other one is Slack. Yes. I used to hate Slack. I used to be like, man, this thing don't make no sense. But now, woo, Slack is organized the way my brain is organized. I got all these different conversations. Channels. Yeah. So you can just jump into a channel. You know what that topic is about. You can stay focused on that topic, and then you address everything easily. And when I'm dealing with so many employees and so many, people, some external vendors, I can bring them all into Slack and have these conversations. Oh man.
The integrations are great too. There's a lot of really cool integrations with Slack.
100%. 100%. A lot of integrations, actually.
Absolutely.
And I'll give y'all one last one. I kind of mentioned it earlier though, but community, right?
Yes,
I use community for my community. I use that for my text messaging and everything. And my DMs as a influencer now, my DMs are insane.
No, you sent me an audio. I don't know if you remember. You said 405 or 400, and I was like, "What?" I thought I was struggling with some of the Clubhouse ones. I'm like, and I can't. I mean, because that's actually the only thing. So my team manages my Instagram and everything, but DMs it's still me. And I was like, how is this guy keeping up? You have a system for that as well, don't you?
My system for that is if it's someone I'm networking with directly or someone I know, we move them into the primary folder.
Oh.
Then my staff handles the general folder and the request folder. And but even in my primary folder, all my friends from that I ever met in my life have been coming out of the woodworks like, hey, how you been, man?
I see you blowing up.
You know what I'm saying? So my primary folder is crazy too, but it's somewhat manageable. But community makes it so much easier, man. I could reach
because you can tag people on the back end, right? Like if you text me this, then I know you're interested in that versus
exactly.
It's guys, if do not sleep on community, it's powerful stuff. And I see I'm on your community actually, because you told me that I want to get this on air. You told me, I don't know if you forgot or not, that I was VIP. So I want you to remember that. You said
VIP,
that,
bro.
You said that. I better be in that primary. I don't want to hit no. I want to hear it's me. It's Ruben Beez. That's what
you talking about in IG. Yeah.
You in IG, but also in community. You told me I'm VIP. That's what you said. I didn't say it. So I'm VIP everywhere now. I just want you to know that it's on the air. It's on the record.
As a matter of fact, before we get off, let me give y'all one more thing, right?
Yes,
since we mentioned community.
Yes.
The downfall of community is once you get to 1,000 or more subscribers, the price gets insane. So for everybody out there, know that community is amazing, but an alternative, which is going to require work. I kind of equate this to Apple iPhone versus Androids. Like iPhone just work. It's simple. It's just, it just works. Android, the reason why most people like Android is like, oh, it's more powerful. I could do more things, more customizations and such, right? I don't want to do all the customization. I just wanted to work and done. So I choose Apple. So community is Apple. Twilio is Android. Twilio, you're going to need a Twilio developer to help you to configure everything. You can't do that on your own, right? But the power that Twilio has is probably even more than community, but it just requires that custom configuration to fit a specific workflow and to be automated. I have it in one of the workflows with my VAs and such, not my VAs, but my VA staffing firm, where like as we're recruiting someone and they go into the various interviews, we move them from one column to the next in Trello, and when you move them to the next one, Twilio automatically sends them a message and an email and does everything. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Twilio is doing like all the automation in the back end for us, and it's an amazing platform. So definitely make sure you guys realize that community is amazing and it's simple and it's easy to use, but once you hit 1,000 or more subscribers, it kind of the pricing scheme is kind of you know. So Twilio is the backup.
Thank you for that plug. And it sounds like you might be birthing another add-on package business. I don't know. I heard something about developing. He says it's PMP, ITIL. Like, I mean, if anyone's qualified, I'm smelling something there cooking. I put it out there, man. It's on the air. But listen, man, this is, again, episode is brought to you by Invested Talent, our sister company who produces the podcast. We got to ask you this. My team would kill you if I didn't. How important or significant has social media been? I know you touched on this since you started playing the game of social.
Oh, that's been powerful. It's been a necessity. I mean, to help as many people as I've been able to help already, I wouldn't be able to do that without social media, you know. And Clubhouse being the new dog in the play yard. Clubhouse has been amazing because I've even gotten in touch with, and as a matter of fact, over 10 years ago, it was 2007 actually. I had launched a different startup company at the time, and I was trying to get some venture capital funding, and there was a specific VC partner that I couldn't get in touch with at all, couldn't get on his radar at all. That person pings me into rooms on Clubhouse now because he heard me speak before and appreciates the value that I give. So the connections that you're able to make.
I want to tap my mic right now if you're listening. I'm typing my virtual Clubhouse mic. My goodness.
There you go. Tap that mic.
My gosh. I mean, that's such a good segue, man, because that's how I discovered you. And I'm so thankful because I definitely want to be part of your ecosystem, helping any way that I can. But if for the listeners who heard Beez talking, dropping gem after gem, you stayed overtime, and time is valuable, very valuable. Where can we find out more about you, Beez? Or one of the multiple businesses that you're running, and tell us, man.
And we didn't even get into all of the companies yet because we didn't even finish the car rental one with Turo and everything. But yeah, there's so many.
That's part two. You're coming back.
That's part two. But y'all can tap in with me anytime on Instagram. That's where I mainly live, right? So Business Builder Beez, and that Beez is with a Z, Beez, right? You can find me on Instagram, but I'm on everything as well. And then keep in mind, it's not me on everything, it's my staff on everything because everything's automated, right? So I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, everything. But Instagram is my main. Clubhouse, I've even calmed down a little bit too, but Instagram, you'll always catch me.
Right. And if you add some value, you might be able to make it to his primary. I'm just saying, find a way to get in there, guys. He said it. He told you the game. And I want to give a big shout out because I went on your Instagram and you gave me a gem with Dun & Bradstreet, and I actually connected with someone there today because of Beez, like just these insights I've never heard of. So Beez is putting out some good content, and as practitioners, it is our duty to take action on all those insights. If you just listen to all this and you don't take anything from it, then you'll just be a good ass listener. But that's not what we want. We want practitioners, experimenters, and Beez. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in, because you're literally an embodiment of what an experimenter is successfully. Beez, man, what's next for you? We gotta have to do a part 2, but what do you think is next? Like your horizon is 2021, March 10th. What is on the horizon that people should be like, ooh, we're gonna look up for that?
I mean, I already know what's on next week. I got a lot coming right now. There's this healthcare play I'm about to get into right now that's insane and huge. It's not something that's going to be like, oh, I'm promoting a lot to my audience.
Yeah.
But it's going to make me a lot of money. And then I'll be teaching others how to do it as well.
One more time, what was it?
Pardon me?
What did you say it was?
It's a healthcare play. It's like a home healthcare thing.
Interesting. Oh, it's so interesting how you move, man. And so this is a bonus, and I promise I will take you out to dinner. Look, one last question, because it resonated with me. I was actually in a clubhouse with JT Fox, and JT Fox is, you probably know, he was actually answered a question from, like, damn, this 9-figure guy is really insightful to get into their minds. One thing I wanted to ask, and I was on stage and I was taking off in a plane, I was so pissed. I want to ask you though, when you get all these gems from, because there's so much to implement in your business and there's so much knowledge, what's the framework that you use to say, okay, this is going in Q4, Q3, like, how are you taking, like, are you writing it down in a note? Like, I have an Excel. I don't know if that's best practice. Like, what's your framework when you get a gem, you know, you maybe can't apply it right away now, but it's got to go somewhere. Where does it go?
Yeah, so I tap everything into Trello. I have an insane Trello board with just ideas. If somebody says, hey, you got to read this book, I'm like, okay, add it into Trello, because it's all going to be there for me. I have a whole book, what do you call that? List
section,
section within Trello, and everything, and new plays, whatever. But what I use in my head is something called Moscow. All right, and this goes back to my. Are you familiar with Moscow?
Man, I'm in IT, man. Come on, must have, could have, would have had, something like that, right? Yeah.
That's it.
Man.
That's what I use in my head. It's just like, okay, because I gotta listen. Grant was right where he said that if I don't know you, I can't flow you, right? Because once I started to become known, I don't even look for opportunities anymore. They come to me somehow. Like, people just come to me like, oh, gotta tell you about this. And then, you know, a lot of it sometimes is fluff, but I could tell the ones that are, especially if I see the activity and see that they've actually executed too, I could tell the ones that have potential. So immediately in my head, I'm like, okay, is this must have? Should I do this right now? Is this a must that I have to do right now? Or this is this would be kind of good. So I'll push it to maybe next year's plans or that type of stuff. So that's how I evaluate it quickly, but then I document everything in Trello so I can have a place to go back to.
I can't tell you how helpful that is. That is really, because I was really thinking of a framework, and I hope this helps the listeners as well, because we don't have a problem with information these days, but it's the implementation. And one thing that is a struggle is, like, you have a focus, you know what the Q2 goal is, and then you hear this gem and it's like, damn, like, where do I put this thing? Because we know that, you know, you can build a lot of different things, but it took focus.
Oh yeah. And that's one other thing too. If I start, I engage in something, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to see it through. Yeah. Right? If I have it planned, but I haven't started yet, and something better comes along, then I'm willing, not always, but willing to pivot. You got to be able to pivot as an entrepreneur. So, you know, for me, if I started already though, I would have wasted the time if I stop in the middle. You know what I'm saying? So if I start, I got to get it complete, unless it proves to be a bad business model, and then I need to pivot out of it. But yeah, I always do that. I complete what I begin, and then if I haven't begun it yet, that's when I could choose if something new came along that's a better opportunity.
You heard it here first. I'm over here pulling up, making sure that I get the handle for your Instagram, because people need to hear more of you, and I think you have a message to say. It's Business Builder Beez on Instagram, guys. Business Builder Beez. Make sure you go and show some love. I will certainly be following my this practitioner gentleman here in front of us. He's doing some amazing things, and I'm sending all the blessings your way, positive vibes, and just like that, we are out. Beez.